The title of the panel, as I'm sure you've probably seen, is From Insights to Impact. And the main focus of the whole conversation, or at least the way that I'm going to phrase it, is all around, well, how do we actually take these insights and actually drive better decision making, helping people make choices that they'd probably be making even if they didn't have any data, but help them make it better by providing them with evidence. Hey everyone. Hi Elite Panel, how are you doing today? Thank you for joining us. So the panelists that we have here today, so you just heard Jeremy Shapiro speaking. We also have Gishan Nissanka, who is at the Global People Analytics team for EY. We have Madhura Chakrabarti, who is the Global Head of People Analytics at Syngenta. And we have Sarah Anderson, Principal People Scientist from today's track sponsor, Sage, and she works in the Sage AI Labs. So thank you guys for joining us. We're very grateful to have you here. And so when we were prepping for this session, I was like, well, what is the most fun thing to start with? And if I'm honest with you, I was like, well, the fun thing that I think the most fun thing to start with is to say, well, there must be something that you guys do which is fun and exciting. You know, a place where not only do you get to do interesting analytics, but you get to have an impact and you can look back and say, hey, look what I've achieved. So I thought the first question we might ask you all is, well, what is your favorite type of HR question to answer and why? I'm just going to pick from the order that you're in my Zoom, and Madhura, you're the next one across from my screen. Would you mind?
Sure.
Jane, thank you.
Sure. Thank you. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. This is Madhura. No need for introduction, as Nigel has already gone through that. So to answer the question, again, I would say two things. One is, and there may be a recency bias because we have done so much of it over the last year through the pandemic, is employee listening. So it really, I find it amusing when people start talking. I think people are generally feeling better now. And it's so much of it is anecdotal based on the last conversation you had or the last meeting that you were in, or literally coming out of the first in-person meeting that you had 1.5 years later. So you start saying this, but I'm always amazed at the lack of data and how people are comfortable just saying what they're feeling. So if our team is able to add numbers to that conversation, I feel like we have really achieved a lot. And we did that throughout last year, where we said, yes, a lot of people want to come back, but keep in mind that consistently across all our listening exercises, 60 to 70% of our employees always said they want a hybrid model. So this is not a blanket policy that we can come up with where we say everybody goes offsite because we think people enjoy that. So, and moment you start putting numbers, you see that gets picked up, and our CHRO and sometimes our CEO always uses those numbers coming up from the listening exercises. So I think it's fun, but it's also very impactful and very satisfying. The second type is whenever we are able to answer a business question. So a year back around, we did some work around predicting who are our best sales performers. And some of the findings we had, our sales strategy team basically came and told us that this is the best HR involvement we have had. And we never knew HR could help us with that. So those are the most impactful / fun exercises that we have had. So I'm sure others have other great examples too.
Yeah, no, that was great. And like I say, I think I can pick up on your energy. It's like that was actually an exciting project to deliver. You know, somebody took a different action, and even better, it helped employees, you know, to get through the pandemic. Gishan, what about you? What's your favorite type of, question to answer, and why?
Pick one of the latest ones. Hi everyone, nice having you all here, and also seeing everyone, the panel, and hi to everyone listening. So one of the key ones at the moment is a great resignation, right? So everybody is kind of panicking and also kind of trying to find ways to retain people. So one of the things that we recently designed is we call it EPP, exit probability profiler. So how to kind of profile why people leave the organization and why people sometimes stay with the organization, right? So trying to look at the drivers of leaving and drivers of staying, and also even project, how many kind of possible or probable exits within any given business area that is likely to happen. So that has been taken a storm, if I be honest. Every leader, every service line leader, every country or region, kind of going far beyond. I think HR, it has created so much impact in business, because they could really to look at the kind of the impact it's having, the data that sometimes you don't have tangible information to make a decision. So I think it has been a quite hot topic and a really good project for us, for people analytics team.
You mind me asking, because I think in Madhura's case study, example, she was providing answers to senior business people, it sounded like. In your example, Gishan, who are you answering these questions for? Like, who are you providing the value to?
Well, we're looking for business leaders. So if you look at in a consulting business, we have service line leaders and COOs, and sometimes people sponsors, which is kind of going beyond the HR business partners and typical other people you would normally work with. So it's kind of, they're really taking ownership, and we do kind of update it quarterly, and it's people waiting for the next quarter, right? Can you give us, and like so much energy, so much interest, not just from talent across business.
Yeah, thank you. And Sarah, what about you? What's your favorite type of HR question to answer?
Oh, it's so hard to it's so hard to choose. A couple of things that I've been really excited around lately. One is whenever you can really connect the dots between an HR problem, HR data, and really like business data, and so you can really start to link what's going on with your people data, the insights you have there, and how it's actually driving a concrete business metric that the business cares about. It's so much more powerful when you can go to a business leader and say, oh, we have a problem with turnover, and because of that problem with turnover, we're going to have to spend this much more money to bring new people on, and you're probably going to actually miss your sales goals because we're losing these salespeople. And really being able to translate, some of the things we work with on a daily basis in HR and people analytics into actual business numbers, I think can be really, really powerful in those conversations. And then the second one is, because I'm going to throw in two, is really the opportunities for machine learning within the people analytics space that have emerged recently. Some of the projects we're working on are really taking the power of machine learning and making it available to smaller and mid-sized companies who haven't had the opportunity to really invest in those types of things in their own businesses because they don't have enough data. They can't hire, a team of data scientists or anything like that. And so really empowering them with the power of data across companies is an area I'm really, really excited about.
Awesome. And Jeremy, would you like to add one?
Yeah. Well, I love this. I love these stories. These are great too. So one thing that we did recently was analytical research on the data science and analytical talent across the entire company. Too, and it was an energizing project for a lot of the team because one, it was helping folks that they kind of felt were their kind of kindred spirits. Too, but it also helped to outline some of the changes that occur so quickly inside of organizations. So just as an example, I love picking on the job title of data engineer, because there are so many changes that occur in data science today that the base of reference of the title data engineer has changed in the past 12 months. Now there's actually flavors of data engineers, and 12 months ago that was less so. It happens to be true of data science that happened a few years prior to that as well. All of these terms keep on morphing. So where we can create better learning pathways or better networking opportunities, there happen to be some O&A, organizational network analysis in this as well. You can really get a feel for how some of these emerging functions inside of organizations are operating and how we can make them better. I think that was a nice kind of small project, but has some nice pieces around it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I mean, I always have this theory that the great thing about people analytics people is that when you ask them about what gets them excited, yes, they get excited about number crunching, but they get excited even more about impact. You know, somebody taking the numbers that we generate and doing something with it. And we've heard just off the bat there, but I expected 4 and I got 8 interesting stories, I think it was, or 7 interesting stories. And I suppose to our panelists who are, thankfully, thank you for adding questions. But just imagine there's somebody in your organization who's getting excited to answer these type of questions for you if you just ask them. Now, I'm going to try and weave in some of the questions that are coming from the audience into what the panel and I were thinking we'd like to share with you. I think maybe I'll go back and I'll stick with the pre-prepared question just to get us started, which is, well, as people analytics experts, and we'll ask you in a different order this time so that it's to keep you on your toes. You know, I think, you know, it's one thing when we're talking in people analytics rooms and we're talking to the converted. Where actually, I think in this particular room, we have lots of general HR people, HR professionals who want to make better choices, want to be more data driven. So if you're reflecting maybe on some of those things that you just said, what would you think be the secret ingredient that you would like to communicate about? Well, how do you actually have an impact with analytics? Or maybe flip it on its head. What's something which goes wrong? It's a pitfall and you'd like to communicate and say, well, this is what we could do better. I'm going to randomly pick this time. Gishan, you're not on mute, so you might have self-selected yourself there. What do you think? What's your secret ingredient or the thing you're always avoiding?
Well, I think the secret, as Jeremy said before, is a relationship, right? So if you have a good relationship, either way, it just works both ways. So my role in my EY is business partnering, analytics business partnering. So making sure, taking all the things that, you know, the all wonderful products and services or solutions we design and build globally, taking it to regions, make sure people actually using them and utilize them to make better decisions. But what you find, like as a team, we probably can't reach out to 300,000 people, over 1,000 HR business partners and that kind of a scale. So what I would say, you're probably working, probably not that massive organization, but the capabilities of people analytics team and their time probably limited, right? So sometimes don't wait till they come to you, right? So to the other, right? Reach out to them and ask them and challenge them, right? We always like a challenge, right? We're analytics people, right? Ask hard questions and we'll go and find solutions. So I think the key for me is don't wait, reach out, and also don't be scared, right? If you are, is it not something you are familiar with, it's a territory, jump in. So analytics is, I don't think it's no longer as a specialized thing. It's something that we need to have every day. We've seen that over the pandemic, most of the decisions, at least in the UK, decisions whether to lock down or not was decided based on science, data science. So it's a way of life, I believe, you know, going forward. So get familiar with it and reach out and help, ask for help. So that's my recommendation.
What do you think, Madhura? Like, does that sound? You unmuted yourself.
I really like that point Gishan made. I think the other point I would like to reiterate here is, you know, we have all these models of level 1, 2, 3, 4, or, you know, here's a spectrum of how you start analytics and how you end. But in reality, the more and more as a practitioner I've experienced this world of people analytics, it's never a linear journey. And we have to be okay with this non-linearity, so to say, because on one hand, you are sometimes struggling with basic infrastructure issues, trying to get the right systems in place, sometimes trying to teach senior stakeholders how to read a dashboard. On literally the next day, there may be an opportunity where you can pitch an idea for ONA. And that's what happened with our team, where that got accepted by a business leader. So we then went ahead and did a pilot ONA study with one of our biggest business units. So those literally are two ends of the spectrum, but they can go hand in hand. So don't be too constrained in thinking that, oh, we are actually in level 2. So let's just gradually move to level 4 in 2 years' time. You can actually do level 4 work even when you are in level 2. So don't be constrained in that linear model when we are actually practicing people analytics. Those models are great. I'm a big fan of those, don't get me wrong, but in reality, you have to get out of that thinking.
Cool. And Sarah, what about you? What if maybe from an advanced AI perspective, because I guess that's your background. What's your secret ingredient for having an impact?
I think it really all comes down to really knowing your audience. I'm going to say your customers, as like people in the business, right, are often are the customers of your HR business partners, and really understanding their needs and what it is that they need from you. What are their big problems that they need data to help answer? And then that's not just a one-off process, it's an iterative process. So you have those conversations, you understand their needs, you understand your problems, you go see what you can find to help solve those, and then you come back and say, does this help? Is this helping you make decisions? Is this helping further your business priorities? And if it's not, then you go back to the drawing board and you try something else until you're really able to make an impact.
Yeah. A question came through a bit earlier. I'll throw it open to everyone because I think you'll all have a view. I mean, reflecting, well, the question is really, how do we, I'll read it out directly because it's easier. How do we use analytics to help employees to make better decisions? I guess, Gishan, you referenced, you can't speak to 300,000 people. I guess you're all from quite large organizations who have large customers. What do you think about the answer to that?
I think that's the ultimate goal, right? So we start with the leaders, then you go to managers, then you try to get to the leaders. So we are going through a huge transformation process, right? So we deploying new systems and whole new infrastructure. I'm also part of a wider digital talent or digital HR team in EY. So it's all about digital experience, right? So end of the day, right? So we pretty much talk to a laptop now, as we work, right? You spend probably, I don't know, on average, there was a study done, right? Your screen time is more than any other time that you would spend. So if you can, like you look at it, like Microsoft Viva and, ONA, there's all pushing you daily saying, these are the meetings, get ready, likewise. But the value really comes in if you can combine some of the, the operational and experiential data that we have with the organization and telling me how effective I could be. Right. So this recent study we did on learning space, but we found that the kind of doing control testing, the people who learn more than X amount of time, like to do self-study, not compliance, right? Of course, you have to do a lot of compliance, but are more likely to be a high performer, are more likely to be engaged, are more likely to be even get promoted, right? So imagine if you know that, right, you're more likely to be, learning than not, putting it to a side. So that's a really great insight. I think that's our aim, what we are looking at, providing the insights to our own employees so that could be better client serving, or could be, improving the, your own performance, likewise. But of course, I would say it's ambition. That's something that we're working towards. It's not something we have it in place.
Yeah. Jeremy, I think you were about to say something.
Well, building on Gishan's point there, there's been a revolution in personal analytics over the past 12 to 18 months. So if you're a Google user or if you're a Microsoft user, I'll use the Microsoft example. The My Analytics product allows me as a contributor to understand what's going on with my own personal network, what's going on with my own personal time, and even gives you tools to open up a deep work time where you need to as well to integrate it together. There's a far up ramp on what this work can do, but I do think that part of the analytics function is to champion the tools that all employees can use as well. And so if 100% of your employees are looking at their networks and thinking about how they're spending their time, you can create enormous positive leverage by empowering employees, letting them see their own networks, letting them see their own work, and going from there. I think it's very energizing.
Letting them know what's in it for them, almost, right? Like Madhura, I guess maybe a similar question, but I suppose you leveraging your original story, using analytics not just to help employees but also executives. Like, how did you do that? Or how did you do that?
it goes back to, what problem you're trying to solve, right? So this particular sales strategy analysis that we did, yes, it had business impact or business relevance, but it was also catering to a specific team within the company, right? Or a sub unit. So there's always this balance of, do you want to address the masses and upskill the masses, or do you really want to solve a particular problem that helps a particular organization? And sometimes to drive really good impact, it's the latter. You have to focus in on a very specific problem and help a very specific team walk through that. So that's the challenge we have. And sometimes you have to choose one or the other. And sorry, what was the other question that you had?
I actually think you managed to answer both questions with the, with the one answer. I guess maybe, in fact, yeah, let's, because there was the one other question we wanted to give you all the opportunity to say. So as advocates for data-driven HR and people analytics, so if we could give in one sentence some advice to our HR audience who are listening to us right now, to say, well, if you take away one thing from this session, it can be anything you want. It could be about adopting data-driven HR. It could be about using AI. It could be about, engaging with your people analyst team. Anything you want. What would that one sentence be? Let's do a different order, shall we? Sarah, would you like to, let's go first this time?
Sure, one sentence, huh?
One sentence, yeah. That's a challenge.
I think I already used my one sentence, just saying one sentence. So the way that I would like to talk about it is that if you looked at two companies and you considered that one company really knows their people, they know why they're joining the organization, the culture, the engagement, how to really get the most out of their people, how to retain them. And there's a competitor that doesn't know any of that. Which of these companies do we think is going to be successful in the long run? Knowing your people, using people analytics effectively, data-driven decisions, it's a competitive advantage for organizations. And companies that don't invest in that are going to find themselves at a huge disadvantage as these continue to proliferate across different companies.
Awesome. Great sentence.
Not quite one sentence. Yeah.
It was a good set of sentences. Madhura, you're unmuted. Would you like to answer the question?
I think my one advice would be upskill the entire HR population. If you have limited budget, spend it on upskilling the mass, the critical mass here, because the exponential impact that'll have can never be compared with what the single analytics team can do. And again, I'm not talking about 200, 500 people analytics team. These are mostly 7 to 10 to 15 people teams that we have. It's never comparable when you start upskilling the masses and seeing what impact they have when they try to drive data-driven decisions within their network. So invest in the entire HR function.
Great one. Gishan, would you like to go next?
Yeah, it's just a simple one for me. I think this is the kind of team in our organization in EY is probably bigger the question, better the answer. So ask big questions, right? So the analytics is all about finding answers, right? So if you don't know something, reach out and ask that question, right? So we should be able to find out, right, why people leave, right? It's a black box, right? Can you open it up? So ask better questions or bigger questions so you'll find better answers.
Ask bigger or better questions, or both, bigger and better questions. And Jeremy, would you like to? Sorry, and Jeremy, would you like to finish this off?
So I gave me the challenge of trying to use the fewest words possible too. Use data, provide context. That's it.
Four powerful words to finish on. Cool. Well, that was great. If I'm going to summarize those last 4 points then, we have people analytics, it's going to give you a business advantage. We have upskill HR. We have ask bigger and better questions. And we have, oh, damn it, I didn't write. Use data. What was the last bit about context, Jeremy?
Provide context.
Provide context. Awesome. Now, actually, I'm reliably told that that's the last minute we had for the panel. So I guess all that's left for me to do is to firstly say thank you to our panelists for joining us today. Thank you, Jeremy, Madhura, Gishan, and Sarah. It felt short, but I feel like we delivered a lot of value, and there were a lot of interesting stories that I hope people took away in their notes. I'll also say thank you to Mihaly, Katalin, and the HR Congress team for inviting us here. Thank you to everybody who's attending, and of course, I guess, thank you to Sage for sponsoring the track. Nobody asked me to say that, but I'm going to say that anyway. Thank you, Sage, for doing that. Just so you remember, last bit, there is the lounge discussion. If anybody wants to go and click on the little lounge thing and have an open, unmoderated chat, there's probably people hanging out there right now. And otherwise, I'll say thank you, good morning, good afternoon, and please hang around because we're about to see our Sages. We're about to see our sponsor Sage present their people analytics solution on creating a tailored dashboard. So please do hold on for that. Otherwise, thank you everyone again. And
sure. Thanks. Take care.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah.